Hate is a very strong word, one of the strongest in the English language. In human terms, it can mean far more than intense dislike, as it's defined in the dictionary. When I say that I hate coriander, cilantro to American viewers, it doesn't hurt anyone. I may find it revolting when it's in my mouth, but I can control my exposure by choosing not to eat food with coriander in it. That limits my menu choices, but it doesn't affect anyone else. When humans hate each other, it rarely stops at avoidance. Someone who hates another may actively wish them harm, perhaps even wish them dead or to never have existed. It can spill over to influence their opinions of not only an individual, but of entire groups of people, even other people like themselves who don't share their hatred. We see it in the worst examples of racism, homophobia, transphobia and misogyny. It's evident in politics and religion, where stout believers of one philosophy blame another for the ills of the world and wish them destroyed. They are the extremists and the fundamentalists, the ringleaders, the bullies and the rabble-rousers. They may be seen as outliers by the general public, but the inevitability of the no smoke without fire mentality means their influence, however subtle, reaches far beyond their fellow true believers. Last time, I talked about the many ways in which prejudice impacts the lives of autistic people. Many of us live with the consequences of prejudice every day, even from people who wouldn't for a moment believe they were prejudiced themselves. It can be obvious and vitriolic, or be concealed behind expressions of concern, within excuses and explanations, or in unnecessary, unwanted accommodations. Just disclosing that we're autistic can get us fired from our jobs, make strangers of former friends, test the patience of medical practitioners and drive educators to give up on us. Of the hundreds of autistic professionals I know, the scientists, lawyers, doctors, company directors, programmers, college professors and so on, only a couple of dozen are publicly open about being autistic. Their very real fear is that if they disclose, they will lose credibility at the least, or their whole career at the worst. We get bullied, insulted, ridiculed and discriminated against directly in school, in work and socially, whilst in the background school kids and political pundits use autistic as an insult and scientists talk about us more like specimens than people. Being put at such a disadvantage, through no fault of our own, is bound to generate resentment. When your whole life has been punctuated by pitfalls caused by the prejudgments of neurotypical people, you might start to feel that they're out to get you. It would be perfectly understandable to think that those people who've sabotaged you at every step in your life might hate you. Even people who've only recently discovered they're autistic have lived a life where they face barriers because they didn't conform to the arbitrary standards that are considered as normal in their locality. Every time the rug has been pulled from beneath their feet, it's been by someone who consider themselves normal. If neurotypical people frequently victimise you or create problems for you to overcome, you'd be bound to wonder why. To decide that they must hate you or your kind would hardly be surprising. So, is that right? Do neurotypical people hate autistic people? Is there an unspoken desire amongst the non-autists of the world to keep us out of their spaces and under their control? The answer to that question is not the clear no I'd like it to be. There are people who do hate autism. They don't necessarily hate autistic people, but they do hate those of us who don't see ourselves as the abominations they believe us to be. The idea that we might be content to be autistic is the ultimate betrayal in their eyes. Many of them are parents who hate how their lives have changed because their child turned out to be autistic and pine for a normal child. Others are bigots who've made false connections between autism and all manner of crime and deviancy. They wage war with insult and aggression, by casting doubt on our knowledge or intent, by calling us fakes, or trying to draw lines between us by inventing labels to create division. They're backed up by the profiteers who fear their easy money going down the drain once their snake oil treatments and abusive therapies are exposed. They don't hate autism. They love it. It's their meal ticket, but they hate the threat we pose to their business model. Swept up in this tide are some autists who have been more damaged by prejudice than most of us. Those who've been so beaten down by the failures and disappointments of their lives, so discouraged by doing the right things but never succeeding, that they've lost hope. They've gone beyond blaming themselves and feel beaten by a system that chokes them at every opportunity. So they disassociate from what makes them different. They actually start to think that if they weren't autistic, they'd be better, happier people. They form uneasy alliances with the haters and the money men because they share their impossible goal of eliminating or controlling their autistic nature. But even including those autists and the business interests, the number of people who genuinely hate autism or have an interest in sabotaging autistic people is a tiny proportion of the world's population. So, what about the rest? Why do we encounter so much prejudice if there's so few people actually seeking to undermine us? Most people are unsettled and confused by things they can't understand or predict. And for neurotypical people, that will often include autists, with or without a formal diagnosis. Once they know we're autistic, then we're at the mercy of whatever misinformation about us they may have picked up along the way. The internet is crammed full of inaccurate, outdated and often harmful explanations of autism written by non-autistic people. Most of it is based on ideas of autism that stretch back to the 1940s, mixed with bits and pieces of later research, even some which has been discredited or disproved since. A great deal of it is sponsored and hosted by organisations with a vested financial interest in portraying autistic people as being too different to have a place in everyday life without their intervention. Someone who presumes incompetence, incapacity, insolence or insult to be typical of autism hasn't looked beyond the sparse and biased information in general circulation. In most cases, that will be autism charity adverts, inspiration porn, and news reports describing autism as a lifelong disorder affecting communication and behaviour. They don't know enough about us to hate us. They don't need to know anything more than the commonly regurgitated garbage because as far as they know, there's nobody it applies to in their lives. They know we exist, but they don't think they're likely to be in the same room with one of us. We pose no threat to them, so they don't waste their energy thinking about us until they're forced to. If we assume the prejudice we encounter comes from hate rather than ignorance, then we're actually crediting them with giving us a lot more thought than they actually do. If we do nothing to address that ignorance and replace the misinformation with good information, then that situation can't change. Until everyone knows that there are autistic people around them in their daily lives, serving them, healing them, teaching them, driving their buses and building their houses, will remain a mystery. Unless they learn about autistic life from autistic people, they'll carry on believing the soundbites of tragedy and disorder delivered by the billion-dollar businesses that use us as a commodity and a lazy, disinterested media. 25 years ago, most information about autism was hidden behind subscriptions, professional memberships and university walls. Thanks to the internet, there's now millions of us discussing our experiences, observations and theories in plain sight. We've built an understanding of our minds, our feelings and our expressions that the decades of formal research before and since haven't come close to equalling. There is now an alternative to the outdated picture of autists as weirdos, misfits and monsters. People can now encounter autistic people online and relate to what we have to say. When they listen to us, they learn that we're not so different after all, and it's relatively easy to accommodate us so that we can all live and work together to benefit us all. There will come a point when neurodiversity is taught in primary schools, so that young children will learn about the validity and variety of different minds before they get exposed to the vitriol of the haters and the vested interests. But until then, it's up to us to fight our own corner. There are people that hate autism, and others who resist the efforts of autistic people to be heard and treated as equals. They are not the majority, though, however loud or vicious they may be. For many of us, all the mistreatment we've received in our lives has been at the hands of neurotypical people. But that doesn't mean all neurotypical people hate us. Most of the prejudice we face is founded in fear and ignorance, not hatred. If we do nothing to replace that ignorance with truth and kindness, we risk the real haters winning. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to help this channel grow and produce more high-quality content about autistic life, then please think about becoming a patron on Patreon and getting access to exclusive patrons-only material into the bargain. Click here to subscribe and be notified of new videos, or click here to watch another right now.